is Kenneth Amechi. I'm a professor of business and sustainable development at the University of Edinburgh. I'm also a professor of sustainable finance and governance at the European University Institute Florence. And I'm on a part-time basis, the chief economic advisor to the Imo State government. So it's my pleasure to welcome you to our webinar series. We did the first one last week, 2 weeks ago, where we looked at agricultural opportunities or agribusiness opportunities in Imo State. The series are meant to uncover opportunities in Imo State and also find ways of changing the narrative about Imo State as a civil service state. We know that there are many opportunities in Imo State, economic opportunities, and today we are focusing on retailing opportunities. And we have experts, people who have worked in the area, and I will allow them to introduce themselves. And once again, I apologize for starting late. We normally start on time, but for technical challenges, we are starting 10 minutes late. But I promise you we'll have a quality conversation and end at the time promised. So permit me to invite one of the panelists, Chidi Okoro, to introduce himself. Chidi, just tell us about yourself and why you're interested in retailing.
Yeah, okay. Chidi Okoro is my name. I can hear myself. Okay. Yeah, Chidi Okoro is my name. I've been around the FMCG telecoms industry for a pretty long time. Originally trained as a pharmacist, and I'm in retail for a couple of reasons. Number one, I mean, retail typically is 17-20% of a country's GDP, or maybe more. So you're talking $100 billion if you use the last GDP number, Nigerian. Number two, employs nearly 30-40% of a working populace, and I'm talking about traditional modern retail. So I have a particular interest in that area. And if you look at my background, I'm also running a retail organization in pharmaceutical space and also partly FMCG. And I'm a consultant in the retail space as well. So I have a particular interest in that industry. Thank you.
Fantastic, Chidi. Thank you very much for that. Let me turn to John. I hope I got it right this time. John, do you want to tell us about yourself and your interest in retailing? Maybe John is not there at the moment. Can I turn to Austin, Dr. Austin Njoko, please?
Hello, can I come on?
Is that John? Please, by all means. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Good morning for having me. I have been around the food FMCG business for quite some time, close to 20 years now. And it's quite an interesting thing for me because from the demographics perspective, we see that Imo State is hugely a consumption state. And we have close to 90% or more of the populace, that are consuming one thing or the other. And the only way to get this across to them is through retail. As a marketer, this is quite interesting for me, and it provides a lot of opportunity. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Joel. Thank you. Dr. Austin Njoko, I don't know if you're there now.
Yes, I'm here now.
Okay, brilliant. Yeah.
Yes, my name is Dr. Austin Njoko, a doctor of economics, and I've experienced retail from two broad worlds, from the service industry and from the real and core retail business as a practitioner. Something is very interesting. If you look at the last 10 decades, you see that the key driver of the Nigerian economy has been telecom and banking. And now the next growth phase, take it or leave it, is retail. So the retail sector is very important for any economy that wants to thrive. And looking at that, you see why I must play in retail. So retail is the way to go. It's the way of life. And I love doing it. Thank you.
Okay, brilliant. Sarah, I don't know if Kachi is with us now.
Yes, I am.
Oh, brilliant. Kachi, please, do you want to introduce yourself and your interest in retailing?
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Dr. Onyeka Chionubogu. I've been in the consumer goods and retail space for well over 28 years across Africa. And like Dr. Njoku has said, previously, before the technology industry, there was the time when banking ruled the space. And today we are in a system where retail is becoming increasingly important for a couple of reasons. One, it creates jobs. Two, it allows manufacturers, no matter what segment you are, to move their products from where they produce to the final consumers. But more importantly, for Imo State is a very, very interesting view or case study in retail in terms of what the state stands for, its position within the Southeast ecosystem, the demographics, and a lot of things point to the fact that Imo State specifically is one state that has huge opportunities for retail, but also has huge unexploited opportunities for retail. So while it's done well as a state, there's so much to do in retail that can create jobs and help the government achieve its goals in terms of youth employment, in terms of providing ease access to quality products for the consumers, and generally growing the GDP of the state. So that's why I'm pretty interested in it from a career standpoint, but more importantly, also from an opportunity standpoint that the state holds. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And I guess our audience will agree that we have very good panelists. And let me start with the idea of Imo State. Now, when we talk about Imo State as an economy, where do we see retail, and how can we convince somebody coming out who is not conversant with Imo State that there are opportunities in retailing? So let me start again with Chidi here.
Okay, good. When I speak about retail, I always want us to see from perspective of modern and the traditional, because the traditional is still everything, 95+%. Now let's come back to Imo State. In terms of demographics, psychographics, I think Imo State sits quite well. Let's break it down a bit. Average age of population in Imo State about 21 years, 18 to 21 years, depending on which data you use. And 5.4 so million population, GDP about $2,500. Again, depending on if you use the CBN number or use parallel market, actually higher than Nigeria's GDP per capita. So they do have consuming power. You also have to look at the location of Imo State, 1 hour distance or equidistant from 3 major, industrial commercial cities, Aba, Port Harcourt, Onitsha, Nnewi, if you add that's 4 of them. So Imo State does stand well. And when you look at traditionally, Imo State had been very retail oriented. We used to call that in FMCG 25, 30 years ago, Imo we had seen as traditional retail market. Aba, Onitsha, Port Harcourt, they were a bit more, Port Harcourt had a bit of wholesale and retail. So we had seen that. So when you look at that population, young population, in terms of education, Imo State also sits quite well. I mean, think about education in Imo State, literacy rate about 90% plus, about highest in Nigeria, by the way. Enrollment is very good. And look at the ecosystem of Imo State, and look at hospitality industry. Those push retail in a lot of ways, and also you can go down and also look at a place like Owerri. It sits quite well. Go into Olo, and then Okigwe as well. The key issue about Imo State is location, the demographics, the cycle, the kind of people you have in Imo State. Young population are given to consumption because they earn small money and they want to consume. And also the lifestyle of the people around Imo State do support retail and consumption because there are people who want to live better life, they want to consume. So that places Imo State in a good place for expansion of retail. I think this is just the beginning. And let me emphasize the traditional to the modern pace. Imo State stands well, and I think is one of the fastest growing states in terms of retail generally, both from white goods to FMCG to pharmaceutical to fashion. No matter what you looked at from point of view of retail, Imo State does stand very strong in that area. Thank you.
Okay, fine. So let me turn to John now before I come to Austin. You've been in the kind of, will I say, food industry and also food marketing. How do you see that in the Imo State context? Does Imo State stand a very good chance for that kind of business? And if one is looking to expand, why should one consider Imo State for that? Joni, okay.
Thank you. I can hear you. Yes. I think that Imo State has huge potentials for retail space in the quick service restaurants and even in pharmaceuticals and all other types of retailing. Like Chidi earlier said, Imo State is quite interesting in when you look at the demographics. The young population of Imo State actually helps to drive these things. And when you are looking at job opportunities for the youth and all that, you see that usually the first jobs that people do will be around retail. You see a 16-year-old, a 17-year-old wants to work in a quick service restaurant or wants to work in a store as a store attendant. And these things create opportunity for Imo State in terms of driving the economy. And in terms of investment, I would also say that it really does not cost a lot as people might think. Because the thing about retail is that you have different skills and different levels. The ShopRites of this world is in retail, but there are also what we call tabletop or kits. These guys also have opportunity to help drive the economy because then you can start business at that level with very low capital and you're good to go.
So when you're thinking about startup capital, what would be reasonable? Because I'm thinking that some people here might also be considering retailing because we need to bring it down to the point that Joe Blog can on a Monday morning start thinking about how to invest in this space. What sort of money are we looking at if one wants to go into retailing?
That's an interesting question because, I mean, if I take the example of sausage roll, a sausage roll, not being specific to any brand now, you can start trading on sausage roll with as little as 8,500, as little as that, 8,500. And trust me, you'll be making a net margin of nothing less than 8%, which you won't get from the banks anyway. So you start small and then you scale up. But of course, if you have the capital, then you can go it the big way. Okay, great. So Dr. Austin Njoku, you are a key player in the Imo retail space. What are lessons you've learned so far being in Imo State and what are the opportunities as you see them? Doc, you may want to unmute yourself, and maybe another good thing might be also for us to switch on our videos for if we are comfortable with that, so that we know exactly what's happening there. Yes,
you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you now, please.
Go ahead. So I was saying that there's a lot of opportunities, in the sector. Like John said, there's not so much money that you need to start off something in the retail space. In terms of a couple of things that need to be done. But first of all, let me paint the background. Talking about urbanization, it is a key factor, especially in Imo State, because those who are in the rural areas are migrating to the urban cities. And again, in terms of our economy and the middle class, I'm told, is growing at an estimated percentage of 4% annually. And that is huge. And that is better than most other places. So looking at that, you discover that all the people that surge into the cities need what I call discretionary income, beyond the regular income that comes from government or wherever they ply their trade. So that being the case, they need to be able to enter into this space. And I say it does not take much. For instance, if you want to be a supplier, to any of the outlets, it takes only small amount of money
Sorry, what do you mean by outlets? When you say any of the outlets, what do you mean by outlets? So that people can...
Amongst the retail players like Priceless, for instance.
Okay.
You can start from there. If you don't have a job, a paid job, or you are not producing, you can start from there. You can produce things as little as plantain flakes, chin-chin, puff-puff, all those things. It does not take much, so long as you can wade through the NAFDAC requirements and all that. That provides discretionary income, and it can grow from there. And it's a space to look at. Sometimes you look at the big picture, but you have to start small and grow it. That's the language of retail. Yeah.
So for people like you, I think the point you made there is very clear when people are thinking about buying local sourcing. So what you're saying is that the retail space and people like yourselves can even promote that idea of buying local, as long as you have local suppliers that meet the standard that would enable them to be on their shelves, right?
Absolutely, which also provides direct employment and indirect employment for citizens of Imo State.
Okay, great. So let me turn to Kachina. I mean, you have been a player at different levels. Why would you encourage anyone to come to Imo State in terms of retailing, if you're an investor or a supermarket or something like that?
Thank you very much, Prof. I want to say a few things. I want to just pull together a paint in the next 1-2 minutes. What drives retail, basically? Things around disposable incomes, your demographics, convenience, ease of convenience to the retail places, availability of products, habits drive retail lifestyles of people. If we look at Imo State, and you ask me, why should anybody come to Imo State? So Imo State is interesting. It's like a confluence state. It's bordered by Anambra, Rivers, and Abia. Anambra and Abia State are big trading towns. So there's money around that, and Rivers and all that. So even though Igbo may not be seen as a very industrialized state, but it is bordered by states that people move goods and services to and can buy. I think that, interestingly, when I was thinking about this, Imo State is the 3rd smallest state in landmass in Nigeria, but the 15th most populous. What that means that there's high population density in Imo State of people. So the need to move products from one place to the other reduces because population density in Imo State is about 1,000 people per square meter. So there are enough people in Imo State, in every area of Imo State, to patronize your products. And demographics, like Chidi talked about, age, population demographics, means that you have enough people to keep buying. The other thing that you have, I think Imo State has over 10 tertiary institutions in Imo State. And what do you know about young people? Young people are in school. What they do is buy and eat. They have over five or 6 universities, polytechnics in Imo State. So in terms of the demographic split, in terms of the human density from a consumption standpoint that buy retail, in terms of potential growth in the market, because the middle class is growing about 4%, the entire population is growing about 3.3%. There are enough people to not only engage in retail trade, but also consume goods and services produced within Imo State. Movement between local governments in Imo State is easy. And then if you look at the way in terms of the population spread, in every local government in Imo State, everyone has at least 100,000 people. And over 13 or 14 of the 27 local governments have more than 150,000 people in each local government. Then this our itself has close to 2 or 2.something million. So you have enough people in a small space that is growing consistently to consume whatever you produce yourself, but also to engage in exchange of goods and services. And that's what makes Imo very, very interesting. Then it is bordered by states that also have a lot of money. So money flows through Imo State, money flows through Owerri. And anybody who is well positioned can leverage on those money flows and population density of the state.
Okay. Thank you. Let me turn to Chidi. Now, Chidi, you always talk about the distinction to be made between formal and informal when retailing space. How do you see that play out in Imo State? Because we have traditional markets, and if we want to define retailing as kind of buying and selling or getting to the consumer, so that's what we normally, or what we have done through the traditional informal markets. Even if you think about the Kono one that is being rebuilt I don't know to what extent it would also move away from the informal space to becoming much more organized. So where do you see that distinction, and how does it play out in Imo State? So would you say Imo State is largely informal retailing, or would there be, do you see opportunities in becoming much more organized and formal?
Good. I think what happens in retail in much of Africa, which I've seen, and we narrow it down to Imo State. A lot of people start from a informal space. We start very traditional. It can be an open market, and we can mention names. You know, we can mention a couple of names here, just down to Imo State. So when you come down to Imo State, you can see the likes of Mary's Supermarket and how they started. You can go read their history, how they started. You can go to Everyday Supermarket. We know how he started in Port Harcourt. Priceless certainly up the ante in a lot of ways. And when you go to some of the people doing clothing or white goods and Slot, for instance, I think they have 4 or 5 outlets in just Owerri. They have in Okigwe, they have in Olo, etc. People typically start from an informal space. You know, we are informal people, we're very traditional people. And then they scale up to the very formal space, okay? I think one of the things we have seen is the open market become a place where we start. It's easier, it's cheaper, the customers are bigger there, and then we pivot to formalize with time, and then we scale aggressively. That's what happens. There's a big connection between that informal to formal. And then a lot of time, the informal actually feed the formal. Consumers also, shoppers, start from the informal space, the traditional space. We go to Okano, or we go to all of those markets. We go to Okigwe main market or to Olo. Olo has a lot of retail markets, by the way. A lot of retail, some of them are actually wholesale as well. So people start from there, and then their taste start to climb up. You know, as your income level, as your exposure get better, you start to go up on that space. So there's a big correlation between a big informal market to trending towards the formal. And I think Dr. Austin would explain that to you, how many of the customers they gain into Priceless are customers who were traditionally buying from a Keonunwa. And think about that. ShopRite or the mall, I can call them the mall at table. Owerri was one of the first places they did develop. And I can say it was one of the ones that actually had good traffic. Many of them migrated, but it doesn't mean that the informal space is losing. No, the informal space is also expanding. Don't forget, the informal space still make up 95% plus of the retail consumption in Nigeria. So there's a bit of congruence and a relationship between the two. One supports the other. You start from one, you migrate into the other. That's what I have to say about that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's fine, brilliant. John, building on that, what would be your response or advice to anyone who is considering retailing in Imo State? So where are the opportunities, so to speak? What are the low-hanging fruits?
Thank you, Prof, for that. For me, I really think that as low-hanging fruits, any investor should be looking at coming into the capital city, which is Owerri. There's a whole lot of opportunities there. The new capital is being developed. You know, that area, there are a lot of hotels, and these hotels also allows retail to drive because people are lodging in there and they are going to be consuming. Either they are consuming food, they are consuming drugs or whatever. So all of these things speak to retail. Outside Owerri, because Owerri is not just Imo State, we have towns like Olo, you know, which I'm very familiar with. There's a big market in Olo. In fact, it's called International Market, Olo International Market, and there's a whole lot of, you know, retailing going on there. You also have Okigwe. So these are areas that any investor can easily move in and explore retailing opportunities. We are also interested in actually building the economy for the state, because beyond the investments for the retailers, we also looking at the benefits for the state, which, you know, can come in terms of career opportunities across the entire value chain. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And please, if you have questions, you can share with us. You can either put it in the Q&A session or you put it in the chat. And yeah, if you have comments also to make, please express yourself. We are almost 25 minutes left, but I think it's been an interesting conversation so far. So let me turn to Dr. Austin Njoko. You are in the space and you play a lot here. Let's put it in very practical terms. Where do you get your products from? And what are the opportunities for people in logistics, for example?
Okay, thank you, Prof. In terms of logistics, of course, it's a challenge. That's one area I must be frank with you, that physical infrastructure is key. And that being the case with the activities and the in the area of diesel and other inputs is a problem. So most of the items that come to us come from outside Imo State. And that being the case, you incur a lot of cost in the area of supply chain distribution. And that is key. So it is important that the physical infrastructure, especially around Imo State, which I think is looking up very greatly at the moment, it needs to improve further. And then secondly, I also want to touch on
before you move on to that second point, right? When you say most of these things come from outside Imo State, where do they come from? Would it be Abuja, Lagos, or Onitsha? Or
no, predominantly, not Abuja. Predominantly Lagos, Aba, Port Harcourt, and everywhere, depending on what you're
eating our lunch, so to speak.
But a greater chunk also comes from Imo State. Yeah, that's why I mentioned those local deliverables. We can also explore that. Because truly, we don't sell Rolls Royce in retail. What we sell is what you consume every day. And in fact, retail means those goods you sell to the end user. That's what it means. So meaning that whatsoever you can produce and sell to the end user, even if it's angana, it has a multiplier effect on the local economy. So we can't overlook that. But what is important to me is that there's an aspect that I also need to touch on. I hear that each time you see 4 Africans, one of them is a Nigerian, I don't know if it's true. And that has to talk about population. And that is key in retail. And we have it in Imo State. Now, I know a young lady that started something not long ago. What does she do? She just created a site online where people that don't want to go to Okoro or go to our regular markets to buy condiments for soup can go there, place their order. She will deliver to them. She arranges and buys it, deliver to their houses. And of course, they pay the delivery cost. And over time, this is growing. And you can be sure that most of our people don't look in that direction. And that can grow to an unimaginable height. So I think the online business, of course, we know what it is in the larger world. The e-commerce is taking over the sector. And that's not an area we can overlook, especially for the young ones. So that's a huge market in that area, which they can look at. Being a player is not everything I can say on air. So I have to be careful with that.
You want to reveal your trade secrets, right?
I like that.
Okay. And I think what you're pointing to the fact that there are opportunities in digital commerce, e-commerce.
Plenty of it. Plenty of it.
Yeah, it's also an area we would explore in the near future in terms of e-commerce and digital technologies and opportunities there for Imo people.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, well, let me turn to Kachina. There is a question in the chat. I don't know how much conversant you are with the NAFDAC processes and how long it takes to increase sales, for example. Maybe something between you and Chidi can, take.
Thank you very much. I just want to make a point on what Dr. Austin said on just trying to reemphasize that point. Amazon is a marketplace basically that gives access to people to buy anything. They're one of the biggest companies in the world. The biggest thing that drives retail for a lot of people is convenience. And so when we say Imo State may not have, you ask the question around where do all these products come to Imo State? Yes, they come from Lagos, Abeokuta, and the rest of them. But it doesn't matter where they come from. Imo State may not produce the products, but creating a platform that allows easy access to the products will create value in the system. So if you're going to do that, you're going to have logistics guys, retailers, bicycle guys, and delivery guys, all creating an ecosystem that services that retail demand. And that's kind of thing we need to look at. What within the Imo State sector can we work on to ensure that you deliver on that real consumer requirement of consistent access to products and convenience? And I think that a lot of foreign companies are looking into Nigeria to come in and do that. I know. And a lot of them are. I know a lot of them are. And so it tells me that, look, there's a big opportunity in that space. And that's something we shouldn't miss. Even if we don't have production, we can create a platform that allows ease of access to products.
But who created this, Kachi? Who created this? I think that's the problem, because we can say it, but how do entrepreneurs come in to create this? And who are these entrepreneurs?
Let me use Lagos.
Mm-hmm.
So the amount of delivery companies in Lagos are a million. So you look at the bigger ones, the ones in green, I won't name their names here, the ones in go-karters and stuff. But there are many small players who have 1 or 2 motorcycles, and all they do is then attach themselves to some delivery companies, literally create apps that you go in and log in like you do, and they deliver to you. I'll give you a good example. In the market, Mile 2 market in Lagos, until COVID, I didn't know that you could go to an app just called Mile 2 and put in what you want. But I mean, things like periwinkle. I'm not talking of big products. You want to buy 15 naira periwinkle, 1 tuber of yam, ogo, mutazi. Once you put it on site, they have guys who are attached. So the market section has created that platform that from Mile 2 market today, you can order anything. And somebody goes around to the players in the market, buys for them, puts a motorcycle man, they are the delivers. So I mean, in Imo State, if you want to sell any products in the market, there are associations that
let's challenge even Dr. Austin Njoko there. Would you need those kind of logistic support? Sorry to put you on the spot. I mean, not you, but people in your sector. Do you think that logistic support would be beneficial or add value to the business model?
Yeah, that's in terms of that deliveries.
Yes.
Certainly it will. One thing you must learn in retail is that you can't do everything yourself. That which cannot handle yourself, you must have to concession it. Mm-hmm. And it's key. So especially those deliveries, if you check all the multinational companies, Nigerian breweries, Guinness, and all of that, you don't see them handling transportation. That's the reason they do that. None of them can handle it. Okay, so they concession it and they end there. So in terms of deliveries, you can concession it and get a company that can deliver for you. You can't handle it yourself. It's a handful.
Okay. So anyone listening here and has logistic business can approach you and start that conversation, because that's where we want to get to.
Yeah, certainly. But they need to be, able to live up to it.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, Kachi, you still want to come in, right? Yeah.
So that's one thing that says in the retail space, if we can break that system, and it's not about people with 1 motorcycle can do delivery. 1 motorcycle, I'm not talking of 31. And as stations in the market, I run a small company. I wanted to start selling products in our market. We had to go present it to the sector in the market that sells that food. Had a meeting, gave them products, and they allowed us to start selling in the market. That same sector can create a process that says, look, anybody who wants to buy X, biscuit, bread, oil, this thing, you can come in and create a platform that says you can help you deliver it. That's doable. In terms of NAFDAC, that guy asked about NAFDAC, just quickly. NAFDAC registration process depends on what products you're registering. If you're going to register drugs and things that people will consume, it takes a bit more time than if you're going to register something like not something you don't consume. Let's put it that way. But the point is, my challenge to everybody is the NAFDAC process is a lot more simple than people think. All of us here in NAFDAC are both think, it can't be doable. But I know people who have single companies that make 1 product in 1 room in their house that NAFDAC has registered. NAFDAC, what you need to do is go to the NAFDAC office and find out products you want to make, what is product to get registered. But I think NAFDAC as an institution is trying everything possible to simplify the registration process for big companies and small companies. And nobody should be afraid of going to pursue that aspect in terms of product registration, because it is important. And they make it simple. It doesn't cost too much money. If you use consultants who work for NAFDAC, it can cost you everything from 100,000 to 300,000 for a product. But NAFDAC in itself is trying to simplify processes for people to register products with them.
Chidi, is NAFDAC in Owerri or Imo State?
Absolutely, they have a rep office. Absolutely, and I think the one in Imo State happens to be one of the more professional ones, by the way, because I deal in a lot of states, and the one in Imo State
where are they in Imo State?
Happens to be, I think they are the federal secretary. They have an office at the secretary. They have a base office, but they still report into Lagos. They do operate there because, I mean, come to think of it, Imo State has quite a bit of manufacturing for NAFDAC to deal with. By the way, let's not. So they are there, and you can reach out to them. You can go on their website and see they have contacts there. Because I've seen people who registered bottled water plant. I'm actually registering pharmaceutical products, based manufactured in Owerri right now, and we're dealing with an NAFDAC there. They have to involve the Lagos team, by the way. So that's
yeah. So one thing that helps retailing in some parts of the world is the idea of return policies, right? So if I buy something from you and it's not good, I don't like it, I change my mind, I can come back to you and return it. I don't know to what extent that plays out in the Nigerian space. I know it's an issue of trust because people can also abuse it or misuse it. I don't know, maybe John, do you want to speak to that? Is it something you're conversant with? And somebody just asked the question.
It's really interesting because, I mean, overseas is common and that's the way retail operates. Over here, quite honestly, a lot of retailers shy away from that, and you can't blame them. As you hinted, it's about trust. But then these practices start small and then they grow and then it becomes part of the ecosystem. So if the big players, for instance, could take that lead and try to get that on board, it might just work, but it's going to take some time. We cannot rule out that fact that, I mean, it's not going to work. No, because people are evolving, businesses evolve, and business practices evolve. So I guess we can start small, just the way that e-commerce has grown in Nigeria. I guess that if we make that bold move in retail, we will see it, grow as well.
Okay, so I know we have like say 30 more minutes left, and I want us to start coming back to kind of wrap up in a way. And we have here. I want to reflect on the how would I call it now? The impact of culture on retailing. Go into it. Yeah. So if you look at retailing, the way we describe it, it sounds very sexy, but at the end of the day, it's about buying and selling in a basic sense. And if you look at the Imo person, the average Imo person, he likes his certificates, he likes white-collar jobs. And I did a survey recently, I read a survey looking at unemployment rate in Imo State. And it was found that about 45% of our youths are dusting their CVs, they kind of want to go for paid employment. And we talked about these opportunities in retailing. Could it be a function of culture? So would we be having this conversation in Anambra? Because Anambra people appear to be more entrepreneurial than the Imo people. Is that a myth? Is it changing? So can we, kind of reflect on this, the culture and also the trend, and see whether that could be the reason why we are not tapping into these opportunities? Maybe I'll start with Austin here.
I thought that question should go to Chidi.
I don't have a certificate, Dr. Austin.
Let me give it a try. Okay. What I tell people is, if Imo State is going to upgrade and launch into the world economic mainstream, we ought to have a reservoir of youths that are both trained and skilled in the appropriate areas of the economy that will be able to handle this very important move. And that is the way I sum it up. Okay. I think we may have people that have certificates, but you have people who have the zeal and the desire and are trained in core areas and core aspects of retail to be able to get that to the table.
Dr. Austin, my point is, do you think Imo people are averse to that idea of being entrepreneurial, working with your hands, selling, buying and selling? Is it a cultural thing? I mean, it can be yes or no answer.
No, we are not averse to it. I'm saying that people need to be trained and retrained.
Okay.
No matter how much skills you have to. Learning is a continuum.
Okay.
You have
to
continue to retrain.
In line with these things are possible. Yeah.
Can I also say that? Yeah. Can I also say that one of the things it's a bit of a myth what you're saying that Anambra is more, and Anambra was previously more entrepreneurial, but there are challenges. The point's about mentoring. It's about role modeling. Dr. Njoku today is doing something. He's well schooled. He's a doctor. But whether call it market, call it modern trade, don't Azwafia. Let's put it in simple terms. That's what he's doing. Children Azwafia, whatever you call, we say we do.
I'm a trader.
You're a trader.
I'm a trader, as a matter of fact.
I think the biggest thing in Imo State, the biggest challenge is that role models like those on this panel who have studied, who have all the intellectual know-how, but have ended up, Chidi has been GSK MD, but ended up doing, let me put it in. When you see people who can role model and show that, look, I can be a professor today, but be successful in that entrepreneurial space, whatever it is, bottled water, ogo, whatever it is. I mean, people package in China red oil and sell.
Yeah.
If we can do that, the more you role model those who have done that, then people see that, look, they can do this. The problem with Imo State is that the people who you role model oftentimes are those who have a lot of money that sometimes you don't know how the money came about, but they have a lot of money. Why we have people like these guys who are going to go we should speak more about it, they should speak more about and showcase what they're doing.
Yeah, before I come to Chidi, let me even talk. John, I mean, it also appears that retailing is a gender kind of space, especially, the role of women and the kind of traditional markets. I mean, do you see that playing out in Imo State? Or, I mean, I keep shaking.
No. For me, really, retail is universal. Retailing is a universal phenomenon. So it's not gender sensitive in any way. In fact, I think the men do it better than the women, and as this guy just said now, at the end of the day, it's about role modeling. Because when you see the men doing it, when you see women doing it, there is nothing. I mean, the gender equation has been, destroyed so much when it comes to what one can do and what you can do. I mean, we see women driving Okada. We see women driving keke. We would see women driving keke. We see women who are bus conductors. So I think it's about demand and supply.
Okay.
It's about demand and supply. Yeah.
Okay, great. So Chidi, over to you. I think you've done probably from your experience and interactions. So do you think Imo people are naturally entrepreneurs or something we need to learn?
I will come to that question. But let's understand. I don't like the stereotype, but the people from Oloa, from Imo State, are they not? They typically dominate many cities in Nigeria in retail, and they start from a small table and they explode it. By the way. They're more people, right? I come from Arondi, so we're a strong trader, from the Omire to the, the LNOP. The other thing I say is that retail is the last mile of a real sector. So retail is part of manufacturing. I think Dr. Kachi captured it well. The fact that we're not manufacturing in a way doesn't mean that we're not part of a real sector. Retail is the last mile retail is part of manufacturing. When retail thrives, manufacturing explodes. So think about that. So Imo State, we can. And there are many other opportunities for us to play. And it's a big value chain. Retail is a massive value chain. And I want you to think of a couple of them. Every time I go through the Olo banana junction, I just wither where they sell a lot of banana. And I say, what if someone builds small real estate with cold room for people to display banana in that? That's that you're playing in retail, but you're in real estate. Think about software development for retail, for traditional retail, for modern retail. We can do that, and we're playing in retail doing that as well. Think about consulting in area of building scale in retail. You start from a small table, you can explode. So think about agri product markets as well. You can look at the value chain and say, where is the best for Imo to play? And we can play in different parts of that. But you cannot say that Imo people are not given to retail. I mean, one of the biggest retailers in e-commerce today is from Imo State. We don't have to mention. One of the biggest players in e-commerce today is actually from Imo State. And one of the biggest players in retail, we don't have to mention the name. Yeah, he hasn't paid the radio station. I don't want them to sue me. But think about things like consulting. We have a lot of consultants from Imo. We can play and start to dedicate programs for the retail space to help them scale, to help them train their marketing people, their store people, etc., the operations people. These are opportunities that we can all become part of. Right? And the government, by the way, before I round up, the government has a bigger play.
I want to come to that and what should the government do as well, because we have kind of spoken a lot about
the government can also become a player in retail, because at the end of the day, the government takes the most money. The government makes 30 plus 2%. That's what government takes. And then the pay and all of. So if the government help facilitate retail, they're also part of the value chain, by the way.
Yes. And somebody in the chat was also talking about loans, and the banks can also help. But I think it also has to do with the risk appetite of the banks and some of these businesses. And somebody also asked, I mean, we talked about mentoring. Would you guys be willing to mentor anyone? How can they reach you? I know you guys on LinkedIn and so on and so forth. So maybe you can get some messages or emails coming from this as a result. I encourage you to help as many people as you can. I know you have your other challenges and responsibilities. So let's begin to wrap up. We have 4 minutes. What will be your parting words? Let me start with John. Just if in a sentence, what will be your parting word?
Oh, thank you, Prof. I think this is a good opportunity for Imolites and other investors that would want to take a stake in the state. I want to say you're all welcome. Let's join hands together and build the economy of Imo State that we would love to see.
Okay,
thank
you. Thank you very much, John. And Austin, please. Or why Austin is gathering himself, catchy, just go for it.
Okay. Imo State is an interesting state, and it's a state with huge potentials and opportunities. It has intellectuals, it has young people, it has a feel and a vibe about it that says, look, retail can thrive. It's about looking at the opportunities within the space, government investing and providing the platforms, providing the environments for retail to grow. And for young people to look at, we talk about money, there are so many people funding people. For young people to look at, within where I find myself, what can I get involved in the retail ecosystem to help drive retail in my location? You don't have to be a giant. I've seen people start up companies with under 300,000. I've seen people start making chin-chin, fried chin-chin, put it as silly, transfer it back and sell from their kitchens that have become hundreds of businesses that do hundreds of billions of naira every month. It's about stepping back and saying, within my locality, what can I do? And if we do that, Imo State will take the lead in terms of driving retail expansion, retail space, and retail presence in the whole of the southeast of Nigeria.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much. Austin, are you back now? Are you able to have
yes, I'm here. Yes, I'm here. For me, entrepreneurship is key. Like we said, we need to model the entrepreneurship spirit consistently and deliberately. And in doing that, I say that entrepreneurs don't fail so long as they don't give up. Yeah. Okay. So if that happens, they'll continue to succeed. And I tell people, if you have an idea that is very good and purchasable, you don't need bank loan. People will put down money to support you to do it. First of all, think of the retail idea, then people will support you with it.
Okay. Thank you. And Chidi, I'm giving you the last slot.
From me, first of all, because, please. I mentioned that retail employs majority of a workforce, 30–40%, depending on how you see that. Imo State with higher unemployment rate, just like all of Nigeria. Retail can actually be the way we take up. That's one. Number two, when retail thrives, manufacturing can follow. Retail is part of the real sector. If we expand retail, manufacturing can follow, meaning that we can set up industries. And I think everybody got to play. But the other thing is that finally, the consultants from Imo State, we have to start from people from Imo State first. who are into consulting for finance, for retail scaling, for marketing, I think they do have a big opportunity to actually head down and set up offices and employ the younger ones and build skill from there. And in that way, we can take care of the issues of unemployment. And that has a knock-on effect on everything else. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Very, very a good point to end. And thank I want opportunity to thank the panelists, Mr. Chidi Okoro, Dr. Onyekachi Olubogu, Dr. Austin Njoku, and Mr. John. John, sorry, I missed your last name, but I guess, I mean, it's done now. So an opportunity to thank you, everyone who has joined in, including our technical support. Yes, we started late, but I hope you will believe and agree with me that we had a very fantastic conversation. And the next session will be on opportunities in the real estate sector. So I hope you will join us and we keep the conversation going. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you, the radio station.
Thank you very much. Thank you.